shorty, what your name is? Do you have a man? Who you came with?
Ooh. All right, welcome back, y'all. Street Academy Podcast, where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets.
You were so silly.
What is going on?
John is having a moment.
Yo. Listen. I'm excited, man. I feel you know what I'm saying? Outcast, Big Boy is gonna be Big Boy. Andre is gonna be Andre.
Correct.
And we love what they do. We love. I'm gonna listen to a Big Boy. I'm gonna listen to Andre. I love what he did on that Kanye song. Everybody, it was blowing up on social media. Everybody talking about it. I love it.
Yeah.
When they come together, you know what I'm saying? Sean is good. Wanye is good. Who the other boys to men? The other
No, not the boys to men.
You know, but when they come together,
That's
Missy and
funny.
JoJo was cool. Devontae Swain was cool.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
You know,
They're not jealous. It's true.
you know what I'm saying? So listen, John is good, Amber is good, Jacquie is good. It's all good. But when it come to
Hey.
the right
It's a beautiful day.
I ain't never been compared to Jodeci and Outkast before. This is
I love this comparison, guys, especially the Jodeci. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Do y'all remember that Martin episode where he did? Please, y'all remember the Martin episode where he went to what was the guy? It was Tommy Davidson's show, and then he was doing the Jodeci thing. That is one of the best episodes of Martin.
Why don't I remember that? And I like watch every episode of Martin.
That is one of the best episodes.
I need to go find it, like maybe on YouTube or
And he was singing that Stevie Wonder. Was it lately? I think
Lately, was it lately? I just feel like he was just like, I can't remember which song it was.
Yeah, that was that lately. And then Martin bust out with the tank top on.
It was so good.
Must that be like the one episode that I've never seen?
You know,
I'm pretty sure you've seen it. Yeah.
what was the guy's name? LeVar or Levert? Like the Tommy Davidson character on Martin. He was the recurring character.
Yeah, he was what was his name?
I'm about to.
Yeah, look at
Varnell Hill. Varnell Hill.
Yeah, you remember Varnell Hill, Jacquie?
Sure don't.
What?
And I thought I knew everything about Martin, and apparently I don't.
And you know what? It was when what happened? You don't remember when Varnell Hill came to the to the radio station, and Martin was interviewing him, and then and Martin said, "Don't you have a lake out back?" And he said something like, "Oh yeah, the catfish is amazing." And Martin actually started laughing in real life, like he couldn't hold it. So he had to turn away from the camera because do you remember that, Amber?
I just remember that whole back and forth. Both of them were just on it. They were just like both like kind of just like
Bobby
going
Davis
at it.
had Martin laughing in real life. He was like
It was good.
really laughing. He like turned his head away. And I remember watching like a behind the scenes of it. And Martin was like, I couldn't hold it. Like I was trying not to laugh, but I couldn't hold it. It was too funny. Tommy Davis.
No, the only like living color person that I remember consistently from Martin was David Allen Greer playing that pastor.
Oh yeah, when he was the
That creepy
Yes.
pastor. Blinded by eyes.
Yes.
He would always be like, so and his hands were just like, it was so creepy. Oh man. And it's so on brand. It's like so perfect. Like,
it was perfect.
I feel like any church going woman has had that older gentleman in church, like, or it's like that. Oh man.
Yes.
Did y'all ever see that clip of Kendrick Lamar when he was at an interview and he walked out on it? And it basically, he said he had mentioned something about Martin, and the woman was like, "Oh, I don't know what that is," and he was like, And he's like supposed to be interviewing him about like, supposed to probably be some kind of hip hop expert or whoever she is.
Right.
And he's like, for real? And I think that's interesting because it's like, you know how people claim proximity to Black things, but then I feel like some Black things are really like super Black or so Black that only Black people know them. And then when you kind of claim that proximity, it's like, wait, you don't know this? And not to try to, well, it's not necessarily the same with Black people, because I understand why Black people might know those Black things. However, but when it's like somebody who's acting like they know Blackness or Black thing and they don't, it's kind of like, get out of here.
Yeah. Wait, was she white?
She was something.
Okay.
I don't know what she was.
Like non-Black.
Yeah, she was non-Black, and that's. I think I'm just gonna start calling everybody Black and non-Black.
I like
it. That was my dissertation, because I was like, I'm censoring Black people in my dissertation. So
man, listen,
Black and non-Black.
Because this whole BIPOC bull crap, where it's just like we need to like identify everybody, Black, Indigenous, people of color. People of color, you know what a horrible, ridiculous catch-all term that is? Because it's like we're basically trying to call ourselves non-white.
Yeah. It's definitely the PC way to say non-white.
Yeah, I don't like that term BIPOC.
I like it more than POC. I like BIPOC more than regular POC. But I don't use it unless like I need to for some reason. Like if I'm speaking to somebody who like their language is BIPOC, then I'll use a BIPOC. But like if I'm just talking, I
made this up.
I've used it. I don't know. Like it became
hit the mainstream like a year ago or something.
It did. Like it was like in the wake of all the like racial uprisings, which is so interesting. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday about the fact that I have noticed, this is like super academic, but I have noticed that there are a lot of positions that are calling for like someone who has like specialty in like race in like their scholarship, like across fields. So it could be like sociology, psychology, education, et cetera, et cetera. And they're looking for someone who's like a race scholar. But specifically, these calls are looking for people who have expertise in like indigenous methods or indigenous histories or things like that, like Latine experiences and things. And I'm like, this is very interesting because out of the racial uprisings, the specific like ones related to Blackness and the diversity statements and all that stuff that came out behind all that last year, which doesn't even feel like last year, it feels like so long ago, but
wow, it does.
Yeah, but like I've noticed that the result of that is not benefiting scholars who study Blackness, scholars who are Black. Like it's benefiting other POC, but not, well, it's benefiting IPOC, but not BIPOC.
I feel like, is this the same like type of hashtag Asian Lives Matter situation where it's just like, hey, yeah, we all agree on that. But when it comes to Black Lives Matter, it's not. And that's to say that it's like, we can't just say that it's about Black people. We have to be able to say that it's other things as well in order for Black people to get whatever they need or what they deserve. So it's just like, there were no arguments about Asian Lives Matter or arguments about, you know, getting their legislation pushed through or whatever that was. But it's just like Black people, you can't just be out here saying Black people. It's just, you can't say like, no, we're focused on Black people. Like people, I don't, it's like we always have to be grouped together with other people in order to get some kind of justice.
You know what? Umar actually was the Umar was actually.
You know, he just got married to 2 women, right?
I saw that.
What?
I saw that.
And then he said one of them was like his vanilla African or something. His African vanilla.
What?
I'm sorry. Yes. You invoking the name of Umar, and I'm just like,
go look that up. Yeah, he just got married to 2 women. No, and I wasn't even tripping off that. What made me laugh?
Back to what you were saying. Okay.
I mean, we're gonna get to that. What made me laugh though was somebody was talking about the reception. It was like, it looked like you had no reception at somebody's church.
It does.
It was like Christmas lights up in the background.
It was real.
I was like, okay, Umar, now you get paid a good amount of money for these.
Or does he?
I'm thinking like you don't raise all this money for this school. You couldn't redirect some of your tax returns or something. You know what I'm saying? Like a little $5,000-$10,000 wedding ceremony for both your wives, bro. Like, come on, son. Like, you could have rented for in.
I'm to Atlanta.
2,000, bro.
It looked like some library, community center, something.
I know the Nation of Islam would have gave you like one of their mosques.
Dang, bro.
Come on, son.
There was this clip of Umar that became a meme like maybe 2.5 years ago, and I cannot find it. That was hilarious. But it's just like this clip of him being like, will I have a queen? I don't know. But like the meme was like people, like my response when people ask if I'm bringing a +1, like it was hilarious. And I'm like, I cannot find this little clip because y'all know I love a good gift. I love a good like whatever. And I need to find it. If anyone knows where it is,
Jacquie,
I need to know where this clip is.
In our chats, Jacquie is the queen of gifts, bro. Priceless, yo.
I need to find it.
But you were about to say something about something he said.
Yes.
Umar was one of the first people. This was years ago, where I was watching something with Umar, and he made that mention, and that was what kind of raised my consciousness about why do we have to include everybody when we say people of color, and it's like, no, we just talking about Black people. Like this is what I'm talking about. Black people. And so a lot of times, even when I'm teaching or whatever, I'll say something like, you know, something people of color, but more specifically, I'm talking about Black people. Like I make sure that it's understood, like we're mentioning us, we're talking about us. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't always have to include everybody else to validate our struggle. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sometimes.
Or to be so inclusive.
Right. Now, but and it's not even a pushback, but it's just something else I've been thinking about too. When you said, Amber, that, you know, do Asians get the pushback during the Stop Asian Hate campaign that Black people got during the Black Lives Matter? You know what I'm saying? Why do we have to say Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. And I know from non-Asians, we didn't see it because us outside of their community, all we saw was Stop Asian Hate. And then we saw everybody jumping on board. We saw the bill now that's something we can say. We did see that bill got passed really quickly. You know what I'm saying? Ooh. But do we really know if they got pushed back, or maybe they did and we just wasn't in their community to see it?
That's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah. I mean, you are 100% right. I mean, all I can say is that the country watched someone get the life choked out of them for 10 minutes, and we watched the Kente tribe, otherwise known as Congress, stand up there and kneel, talking about this bill.
Talk about it.
And that bill still ain't got passed.
Talk about it.
But then the country watched, you know, I can't remember the number of Asian women that got killed by a white supremacist. George Floyd was also killed by a passive white supremacist. But we watched that happen. Like we watched that unfold on the news as well. We watched the backlash in the form of Stop Asia Hate, and then we watched that bill get passed almost immediately. And here we are 2 years after the fact, and it's clear that that bill isn't going to get passed. It's clear that like the campaign promise of the president, vice president, who looks more like us than any other vice president in history, even under their administration, that bill still isn't passed and likely won't be passed. Like there's no indication that it will be passed. And so, you know, when we speak of being inclusive to other folks, it feels very often like we're inclusive to our own detriment, because people benefit. We still are asking for benefits for us as well, not just the benefits that stop trickling down when they get to us. So anyway, why y'all got me on my soapbox?
That's what we need.
I can say this though, we did not see a public counter protest or counter hashtag. We didn't see stop all hate. That's one thing that did not become public. You know, it's like, I don't know what was happening in the Asian communities, but we didn't see a counter hashtag. Like,
that's true. Like we saw Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, we didn't see all of that. We didn't see that. And I think, yeah, it's just, wait, the more I think about this people of color term, I'm becoming increasingly agitated. When you think about it, because I've never
like when Amber gets mad. I like
that's kind of funny. Wait, who the hell are people of color? So you got black, brown, yellow, red. Are these where did these terms come from? If you think this is the most ridiculous term ever. So black people, again, we had to be, black was created. So brown, I think, was just created as a reaction to black because we had to some way figure out how to talk about Hispanic people or Latinx people, right? So it's just like, well, let's call them brown because they're not quite black. But then also you have Indian people actually from the continent of India, who they're also like brown, or are they called something else? And then you have the audacity to call Asian people yellow, and then red people are indigenous, probably more than likely like Native Americans, because people will call them red, i.e. Redskins, which is horrible, and that's still there. So is POC really like a combination slur in a way? Because none of it actually, like these are not good terms. These say nothing about the people themselves. And if anything, it's offensive in one way.
You know, I
mean,
mean,
you said like yellow and red, like we don't call Indian people, I mean, people, indigenous Americans red. Calling Asian people yellow is probably not that great, even though I know sometimes they've kind of taken that, they've owned that in some ways to call themselves yellow, or like, you know, when they have their
and stuff,
when they talk about stuff. Yeah. And then I know with, you know, black people, we've taken the term black and been okay with it and what we created it or whatever, but it just seems like maybe it's not a combination slur, but it's like a combination dismissal of your ethnicity and culture. And then to group it all together as though any of this is similar.
I mean, John, you're the sociologist of race, so I'm gonna let you speak, but it feels to me as the non-sociologist, but like that some of this came out of like the 70s during the race movements of the 70s, where people were literally coming together. So you had like the Black Power movement, and then you had like Chicana movement and Chicana Power, and like some of these movements were like operating together. It was like we fighting the man together. I'm wondering if that's like where the idea of like people of color came from, like this idea that like we are working collaboratively, like in good faith, in good spirits, and actually getting stuff done. And then terms and movements get co-opted, especially like when we're talking about during that era, like COINTELPRO and whatnot.
Yeah, I actually just did a lecture about that, and how like, and one thing I wasn't used to when I started teaching predominantly white kids or at predominantly white universities is how often they say colored people. And I was like, oh, y'all really call black people? And I would read papers where they would say out loud, and yes, such and such and such, and it was a colored guy. And the first couple of times I heard it, like I immediately got angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I realized, oh, y'all are saying this because y'all don't know. And so I literally had to put in my syllabus. I had to like actually state in lectures, calling a black person colored is offensive. And they were
doing this in in the 20.
This was 2020, 2021.
And these white students are calling people
email from
are calling black people colored people.
Yes, I can show you an email in the student where the student emailed me and said, Professor Grant, I'm sorry. I know I said colored in my paper. I didn't know that was offensive. And I said, thank you for your response. But yeah, they didn't know, and I knew that.
Yeah, they don't know.
Way
Yeah.
before, like, long time ago, like, don't let nobody call you colored.
Mhm.
So, but actually,
because you have family that teaches you that, and they do not.
and I'm like,
You know,
so
these are kids who are coming from like a completely white context, and no one is talking about race, especially not now when people are like, I don't want to talk about the word diversity, it's banned.
Right.
So,
and the fact that lets me know that words like that and even worse are being used in your home. And the only reason why you know not to say the N-word, the only reason why you know not to say nigga is because of the larger pushback that you'll get from society. That's the only reason. But if you okay with calling your professor colored or calling a black person colored in a public context, then that means that you've heard words like that and worse in your home. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're trying to be better. You're trying to be contemporary.
I'm trying to be better. Like, that's the best.
I'm trying to call them Negroes or niggers, but my gramps still calls them the Negroes or the blacks.
My grandpa says colored, so okay, I have a colored professor. No, I'll smack the shit out you. Like, stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo.
So, but I think that's where the confusion of people of color comes from too, because you have these terms that are very similar of like colored people, people of color. And if you've heard colored people from one group and then people of color from another group,
right,
get into a classroom and you actually have to use that term,
right,
and you might get confused about which one is right if people aren't actively teaching you, like, oh no,
right.
if you are from, if you're like trying to reform yourself from the 50s, then you say colored instead of saying the N-word. But you know, like the nomenclature these days is people of color. And so I've had to explain that too.
And you're actually right too, that it was around the 70s when there was this big shift in language. And
actually, it is before that because I've just looked it up.
Okay, let's go.
So, according to, quick Wikipedia search, because people of color dates as far back as 1796. This term is inherently anti-Black. It was initially used to refer to light-skinned people of mixed African and European heritage so that the French colonists could distinguish between them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It
wasn't popularized though until the latter
French colonists used the term gens de couleur, I don't know how to pronounce it, to refer to people of mixed African and European descent who were freed from slavery in the Americas.
Is this like in the New Orleans region? Or like outside of the US?
If it was 17, then that was
1796 in South Carolina and other parts of the Deep South. This term was used.
That would have been like the whole Louisiana Purchase, because all that was French right there.
Distinguished between slaves who were mostly Black and free people who were primarily mulatto or mixed race.
You know what? That's true.
Civil War.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
And then it says after the Civil War, colored was used as a label exclusively for Black Americans, but the term eventually fell out of favor by the mid 20th century. But it started catching back up once MLK used the term citizens of color in 1963.
Okay, MLK.
The phrase and term meaning did not catch on until the late 1970s. So there was it was out there and then it came back. MLK said citizens of color and then people started using it in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
But that's when you think about it though. Oh, wait, your friend, France Fanon is in here.
My home
in here too. Says that in the late 20th century, the term person of color was introduced in the United States in order to counter the content implied by the term non-white and minority, and racial justice activists influenced by France Fanon. You say Fanon, right? Because okay, popularized it at this time. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, it was in wide circulation. But then where I'm also looking at it is it is really a term used to distinguish between white people and everybody else.
Yeah.
But if you think about how it's just used, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if MLK did any research to see how that term was used before he said citizens of color, but I the more I think about it, it's to distinct. It goes back to, I don't know if I want to call it eugenics, but it's almost that ideal of any pinch of anything that's in you that's not white makes you somebody of color. And we can distinguish that by looking at you. So now it's just oh, we have the white people, the Black people, and then the people who are kind of in between there. That's what it still seems to be like, and that continues to be a problem because of the creation of race, and race created because of phenotype.
I think there's a class element too, though, because when you mentioned the New Orleans, Louisiana area, I remember reading that a lot of Black people who could eventually afford to buy their freedom or escape freedom, if they didn't want to go north, a lot of them went either to Florida or they would go to Louisiana. And New Orleans had this large, this Black free, you could almost call it the early Black middle class, like during slavery, where they would come and they would, dress up and like they had these fancy hats and fancy clothes, and these were Black people with money, but they were called the free people of color. That was the name of the community. And I think the reason why they was dark skinned, they was light skinned, they was like all different. I think probably mostly light skinned because it was usually people who were mulatto, who, who, master/dads, so-called master/dads freed them or whatever because that was their kid or something like that, or treated them nicer because that was
the least you could do, Dad.
Yeah, but I think it was like a class element because it was like, okay, so you got two different types of Black people. You got these free people of color, and then you got these, what they call slaves or enslaved people. And so I think that now that you say it, I remember seeing that term and learning about the free people of color community in New Orleans. And that is actually the earliest time I remember. But it wasn't necessarily to differentiate between two different types of Black people along racial lines or along color lines, but more so along who could afford freedom and who couldn't. You know what I'm saying?
That goes into like the whole like issue with, there are a plethora of issues with race and racial classifications, but just like retrofitting these categories that make sense in other places like France and just like the Francophone, like the larger Francophone world, which Fanon is a part of, and trying to like retrofit those onto like the US and how the US interprets and understands race. So it makes sense to me that this term was taken up in this like very French region because how race and class fit together in other places in the world, like that kind of makes sense to me. Like I am a dark-skinned Black woman, but I've gone in other places and people are like, oh, you're not Black. And that's because they're overlaying this idea of class onto it, like, oh, you're American. And so it doesn't matter the exact like pigmentation of your skin, like you're American and that's presumed to have money. And whether that's like, you have like literal like money, like Beyonce money, but it's like the perception of money because you're American. Right. So you got something if you're able to like leave America and be wherever we are. So by that, you're not Black. So there's like that class element to it as well. Like I think I told y'all like when I was in South Africa and they were like, oh no, girl, you're not Black.
Right.
And I'm like,
I remember you saying that.
Wait a minute now. Look at the color of my skin. Ain't nobody gonna question it where I'm from. So yeah,
good point.
It's layered. And actually, so in this same, of course, Wikipedia has a section called criticism, and they put it clearly exactly what I was trying to say, because clearly we're not the only people thinking this. And they said many term object to its lack of specificity. They argue that the use of a broad term like person of color is offensive because it aggregates diverse communities and projects a false unity that obscures the needs of the individual communities. And then it also preserves whiteness as an intact category while lumping everybody else together.
We really need to get updates on Jacquie. Like, so for all of y'all, as y'all know, the past couple of episodes, me and Amber been holding it down. Shout out to Amber holding it down. Boom.
Listen, POP, hold it down. Y'all are phenomenal.
Hold it down. For life. Yeah, we've been holding it down, man. Had a couple of dope episodes, had some great guests come through. Ayana came through.
Ayana, love you to the moon, girl.
Yes.
I listened to that episode. It was so good.
Yes. Came through. Lauren came through.
Ezra came through.
Lauren, Ezra, Cassandra. So yeah, we got some dope episodes. Had some guests come in. We're gonna have some more guests too. We, y'all know we good for some guests, but we felt like with this episode, we gotta get the crew back together. We gotta get the energy back flowing with the three, what I'm saying? And so we finally got Jacquie back / Dr. Hater. I almost feel, what I was thinking? I was like, man, I feel like I gotta either say something else or come up with another term now, because you was Dr. Hater before the PhD, but now I'm like,
listen, you were the original Dr. Hater. I am fine being Hater PhD.
I gotta say something that's gonna demark the Jesus, when God called what it was Abram, and then it was Abraham.
That's right.
Paul.
That's right.
Like, it's something that gotta demark the change. You feel me? I gotta come up with something else, man.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna let you do that, because you the wordsmith. So
PhD is pretty funny though.
PhD is funny.
I don't know, but you got to tell us, what are all of the new things since you were last year?
All right, so it's now officially October. Welcome to October, y'all.
October.
So like, August was the wildest month I have ever had in my whole life here on this planet called Earth in this 2021st year of our Lord.
Hello, Earthlings.
August, the beginning of August, I moved to a new state, Pennsylvania. That's where I live now.
Where you go?
It's Central PA. It ain't no booyaka out here. Ain't no booyaka at all. So live in Central PA. About 2 weeks after that, I defended my dissertation. About 2 weeks after that, I finally had my wedding. And 2 days after that, I had my first day of class at my new job. Woo! And then like 4 days after that.
2 days after that, I found out I was pregnant. I was going, going viral. I was like, we're going viral. We're about to have like 5,000.
No.
Wow, can we just clap it up for all that you just did in August 2021? Let's go.
Thank you. It was beautiful. It was complicated, beautifully complex, because I had a lot of complex feelings about all of that stuff. They were all good things, like all life milestones. And I just remember feeling like I love this. Like, all of these things are the types of things that people like, they're like highlights of your life, right? Like, oh, I got this job that I've been working toward, like my first day of work, and something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and defend this dissertation. What are you doing? Sorry.
See that?
He's been so weird. He was just like licking the banister, and I'm like, boy, what are you doing? Like, I don't know if there's like poison on there or something. Like how kids would like eat lead paint back in the day before they had to change over everything. So I'm like, get away from that. But anyway, so all these things are like, these life events, like the wedding, the dissertation defense, all these things, and I'm like, I didn't time to really like sit with them and enjoy them. I felt like it was like going from one thing to the other, just like checking off these check boxes. I remember I still am just like super tired from everything. And part of that is because like, whenever you start like a new challenging job that you want to do well in, like it just takes like a lot of time and energy to, do it well. So, and then I'm also like grappling with like this idea of like the Black superwoman, because I'm like, I do not care to embody that at
I'm
all. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just regular. And
that was good.
You're not regular.
When Amber, I was like, oh, that's the perfect.
You're not regular though. Let's not. You're not regular. Although I'm not against regular people, and although I'm trying not to call people regular or basic, that's kind of rude. And that's not fair. It's a little bit of classness and other ways. You're not
Delta be calling people basic,
but you still are a phenomenal woman. That's me.
That's me.
I was tired of that poem. Was anybody else got tired of that poem?
Yeah.
Eventually,
it was a lot.
Black History Month.
It was a lot.
Do a different one. Phenomenal woman. That's me.
Phenomenal woman. That's
me. Yeah.
Shut up. I don't care.
A lot.
But you are a phenomenal. You are a phenomenal woman. That's
Thank you.
I don't want to call you regular. But anyway, going back to what you described. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, all those things were amazing. I am so glad that I had friends who took like videos and pictures of all those things. It was beautiful to have so many people who I love and have had just like a great time with through the years be at those different events with me, and having the foresight to take pictures and videos of those things so I can like go back now and like relive some of those moments. So that's been nice to have. But just like that complicated feeling of like, yes, I've loved this, I've wanted to do these particular things for a long time, but then having them so close in sequence has been like, man, all right, from one thing to the other, just like felt super rushed. So I recommend these life events. Like, they're great, they're fantastic. Do not recommend them all in the same month, in the same year. Okay. Spread them out over a lifetime will be my 2 cents.
Wow.
But what a conglomeration though.
I know.
Do you feel like you were on a high, or do you feel like you're coming down, or like
I don't know. That's a good question. I do remember feeling like anticlimactic after the defense, because I remember just being like, like where you're just like super stressed about something like a presentation or whatever, like you just have all this like nervous energy inside. And then like, once it's done, it's like, all right, that's it. Like, is that all there is to it? And then like maybe a few days later, like a week later or whatever, I got an email from the school and they were like, we're mailing you your degree, like look out for it in the mail, and here's an e-copy in the meantime. And I'm like, dang, I've been in school for 6 years, like all this stress, and now it just boils down to like this PDF that looks like I could have made it in Canva. So it felt like super anticlimactic, but a lot of people did say like that's how it felt for them. So I was like, all right, so it's not just me, at least.
How did it feel for you, John?
Yeah.
When you finally got that degree? The paper itself, or right after you defended?
Oh, right after I defended, because I was gonna say I could go get the paper and I could show you. I still haven't opened it. Like, it's literally. Watch this. Hold on.
Let's open it on camera.
Oh yes, that's wild.
Oh, this is exciting.
Do you have
your degree near you?
I don't. They sent it. They that was actually a little concerning, because I was like, I know they don't have my new address. Are they going to send it to my old ad? Like, where are they actually sending this to? But I forgot that when I first registered for school, I used my parents' address in Florida. And so they sent it to Florida. And of course, my mom was like, oh, I got my degree in the mail.
John, let's open your doctorate on camera.
Yes.
My address. But yeah, it's a Georgia State University, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still ain't opened it.
Just open that thing
on camera.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it look like.
John, you better open that thing.
Let's see this.
So this lets you know that what Jacquie said is real. It gets, because you go through, I think, so like you said, you go through so much. You do the defense, you do all of that. And I remember I was planning that I had to defend to get the job I wanted at the time. And then I was planning that party with Audra. Yeah, it was a lot happening.
Yeah.
That was a fun party.
So yeah, I actually.
Well, why haven't you opened it? Like, what was behind that?
I don't know. It was upstairs in my man cave for a minute.
This is deep. Nah, man, we're gonna psychoanalyze you.
I got issues for real. Oh, it looks nice.
Wow.
This is my first time opening it.
Wow. Congratulations. I'm like, congratulations. It's beautiful.
It is.
It's big.
It's very big. This is really nice looking.
How do you feel seeing it?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
You should frame it and stuff.
And my homeboy actually purchased me a really nice frame. It's a beautiful frame.
You already have the frame? Is it at the house right now?
Huh?
Is it at the house right now?
This is deep.
Somewhere.
This is deep.
Yeah. So it's like, it's been in here like for 2 years. Three now. I guess it's 3 going on 3 years. But yeah, it's like you go through so much, and then you go to the job, and then you got to do this, and I don't think I enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed the moment until the summer, because it was like that next summer, I had that's when I had gotten another job that was more steady, and I had time to like kind of sit with everything. I was still getting paid. So the way I had set up my payment, I was still getting paid even though I wasn't working. And then, so it wasn't the summer until after I got my PhD that I was like, oh, okay. And I could actually kind of sit with everything and really enjoy the moment. But before that, it was like one thing after another for like 9 months straight.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I kind of feel like I might have a similar experience in terms of like, well, also the backdrop for all of this and the backdrop for all of us in life in general right now is this pandemic. So I think like that, like experience of like being done with school and then going to graduation, like putting on your robe, getting hooded, like all of those things are just not things that, just given timing, but also given the fact that those things are just not happening in the same way right now. Like our graduations, I think, are still virtual. So I'm like, I don't need to be on nary another's now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, the first time I might wear my like robe and stuff is when my students have like graduation at my school, like participating as faculty.
Right.
So yeah, I think that might be part of it, of not having like that commencement, literally.
Yo, oh man, you right though. To come through, to have all of those things happen at one time, and
that's a lot.
Yeah, it is this anticlimactic kind of moment, especially after defense. I remember you said that you was like, after your defense, somebody asked you what you was gonna do, and you were like, "I'm going to sleep." You were like, "I'm about to take a nap," and I felt you on that for real. So
John, what did you do after yours? Did you sleep? I know you had your party.
Like the day. No, I was hyped. My adrenaline was up because afterwards, because you was there, you know what I'm saying? You was at the defense.
Yeah, at the party.
Yeah, and yeah, you was at the defense, you was at the party. I was like taking pictures. I was super emotional. You know, I was getting ready to cry or whatever, like when I was doing that little speech at the end. So like, I was like really emotional. I had a lot of it was a lot of not anxiety, what's the term?
Anticipation?
Yeah, it was I just said it. I just said the word. It was a lot of not energy. What, I just said the word, but whatever. But it was all of that though. It was
adrenaline. Was it adrenaline?
Yeah, it was a lot of adrenaline. I do think I remember like that night being really, really tired. Like, cause my parents was at the house, my sister had come in town. There was a lot of people there. So yeah, I remember it being a lot going on. I remember having to plan the party, but I do remember that night being really tired. But I also remember I wasn't completely able to completely rest in it because I still had edits to do. So they still wanted me to do some edits, and I had to get that done before a certain time. So I was happy it was official, but then I still had to meet with my chair because she wanted to talk about the book. So it was still stuff I had to do. So I wasn't able to completely rest in. Like I said, I didn't completely rest in everything until the summer after. And then I was like literally just chilling at the house. I spent like days, I think even weeks, just not doing nothing. Yeah, I was just like super, super chilling. And then that's when I was able to say, oh, wow, okay, I got this. I got the job that I needed to secure everything, got a little bit of money, got this coming in. All right, cool. Now I can. And I think for me, that was another thing, because it's like, yeah, you could get the PhD, but if you ain't got the money to go with it, you know what I'm saying? What matters me, you know what I'm saying?
Speak on it.
And at the time, oh yeah, I was gonna say that I'm gonna end it right here. At the time, I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was trying to work my way into the position of getting the job and getting a job that was secure and all of that. So that was another part of it too.
It makes me think of a question you had asked us before. Like, if you weren't in academia, what would you be doing? Like for all of us to be like, well, what would we, if we weren't in, and when I think about academia, are we saying in the education space, or like, if we weren't here, would there be something else we would be doing, and what would it be?
If I was doing something completely non-academic, like not in education at all, I think I might want to either open a restaurant or like a bed and breakfast or something like that.
Ooh, yes, because you can cook.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about me cooking. I'm just thinking about sampling the food. Sampling the food. Because
You want to eat the food,
I'm talking about the wrong career. I'm talking about a restaurant, and I'm talking about being a food critic. No, but like I love the experience. I love the experience of being like at a restaurant.
You want to be a restaurateur. You want to be the person being fed. You don't want to own the restaurant.
I do. I want both. I want both, y'all. I want to own the restaurant, and I want to sample the food.
Free food.
Yes, you see me. Yes.
You want to. You want an at-home chef? Is that what you want? You just want somebody who can give you food?
No, like I love. Okay, I love moving pieces in terms of like I like multiple things happening that fit together.
Okay.
But I don't like I know that people say like the restaurant business is like super stressful and can be super stressful. I get all that. But for me, when I go to a restaurant and I have like a great experience with like the company that I'm with and have great food and have great drinks and the ambiance is nice, like those kind of details coming together, like those are some of my favorite times. Like when I think back, like even when we had the going away dinner for Audra, like that was like a good, like fun time. And I'm like, man, to be someone who's, you know, in charge of like curating that experience for people, which is why I said also like a bed and breakfast, because then you have some place where you're like getting away, like you're curating this whole experience that includes food. I think
the part of it.
Yeah. I like first thing that I did when I got here, I was like, where's the food? And I found a Jamaican and a Nigerian place right next to each other. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So then what kind of restaurant would you want to have?
Oh, that's a good question. I would want to do like Black diaspora food. So you could get kind of like the wedding. You could get some jollof with some jerk chicken, with a side of collard greens, like all of that on the same plate just sounds phenomenal to me.
Yeah, that sounds good. And for the bed and breakfast, you would do the same?
Yeah, it would have to be like some place or some city that is like meaningful to like Black people, for like there's some sort of like connection to the diaspora there. And
Atlanta,
so
Chicago, New York, DC.
yeah, New Orleans, like Miami, Jacksonville, even like there are these cities that have like these really meaningful, deep stories. I think even of like, I don't know. I mean, New York is interesting because you have like so many different people coming together from the diaspora. But I think even in, I don't know, like even random, like Minneapolis, for example, like there's a huge refugee population there. Like I think Ethiopian and Eritrean, like there's a huge population there. And so I'm just thinking like you have these other cities where they're not the first ones that come to mind when you think of like how these like these various Black people from across the diaspora like meet within the city and influence the culture of the city. Even Atlanta to a degree, like we think of Atlanta, we think of like South, like Black American, but then when I think about like African and Afro-Caribbean cultures that are also like coming together in Atlanta, like Atlanta could be a really interesting place for something like that too.
Very much. Wow.
Dang, I would, you know, it would be so one of my favorite episodes of like different series. I saw this on Friends, but I think actually Living Single had an episode like this.
Yes, Amber.
But I think Living Single had an episode like this. Like different shows have episodes where they say if the characters weren't doing this, what would they be doing? I think Living Single had one where like Maxine was like broke doing something. Queen Latifah, she was something else, whatever. And it would be dope to see like
an episode for us.
Like
what, that would be cool.
Yeah.
If Jacquie was not this PhD scholar researcher, she was a restaurateur. You know what I'm saying? If Amber Kid was a researcher, you know, Harvard grad, all of this, but she was this. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be, I would love to see that.
So what would your story be, John?
I was thinking, and sometimes, not to say that I regret, because I have very few regrets in my life, but I would have liked in another life to be a ghostwriter, a hip hop ghostwriter. Yeah, like
I could see that for sure.
I would have, if I would have really went into it, because I don't really care to be like famous. I don't really care a whole lot about fame or being seen or known. But Esther Dean, do y'all know who Esther Dean is? Oh, Esther Dean is a ghostwriter for a lot of people. She's written for like, Beyonce, Rihanna, Gucci, like a lot of people. She wrote Gucci, you don't know me. Gucci, you don't know me. I think I love her. Y'all know that song? But yeah, like she's written a lot of songs for a lot of people, and she makes a lot of money. But very few people know who Esther Dean is. The Dream, y'all know who The Dream is?
Yes.
Yeah, The Dream is a big ghostwriter. He writes for a lot of people, but you know him because of the hits that he's done, and he's kind of been out there more. But it's like it's a PJ is another one. She writes for like a lot of people. She's been getting more and more love too because she's been collaborating.
Who's that person?
PJ.
PJ? Okay.
PJ. If you put PJ in Common, because she's been doing a lot of collaborations with.
Yeah, I just saw a song come up with that, so I didn't know who she was. I thought they were just not saying PJ Morton, and so I was like, I don't know. But then when he wasn't in the song, I was like, well, where the hell? Oh, I guess that's just okay, ignorant. All right.
But she, but yeah, these people, they make Sahara Prince is another one. He writes for Kanye a lot, and they make good money, but they're not like known. And so if I just got paid like crazy money, another one is what's his name out of Atlanta? Something, is it Martin? Not something Martin, I don't know, but he's a ghostwriter for Drake, and he made crazy money. But so I would have wanted to do that. That would have been like a dream job for me. And then take that money and then be able to like open businesses. I probably would have like opened a barbershop, open like hair salons, open like stuff that's like in my community. That was and kind of is still a dream of mine. Like I would love to.
You can still do it.
I would love to be a songwriter. I would love
always
to
have another life.
Yeah.
I love that. As you talking, I'm just thinking about what my story would be. And I know I would be a multimedia artist, which I just need to start becoming anyway. And I would want to be a fashion designer, or have my own boutique. And just
I could see that all day.
We actually thought you was gonna be there, Amber, though. We thought
I was too.
We was like, oh, Amber gonna have this crazy line with like, because your whole style was so dope. Still is though, but I'm saying I remember
it was different.
Everybody, yeah, it was different.
Yeah, I still feel like that's me, and I feel like I feel like I'm gonna be going into that more, and then also try to have the academic side of it, because it's the us being, multi-hyphenate, Renaissance, Machiavellian, all of that. It's like we all have these different parts of us and they need to be fulfilled. So I'm just like, how can I get it all? And I do want it all, which I think having it all is different from being a superwoman, because I do feel like a lot of people want you to be able to manage the stress of everything and just kind of like be stressed out, which is different to me than organizing my life and planning my life in such a way where I get to do the things that I want to do. That's different. It's not the things that I have to do. I feel like Superwoman is sometimes like the have to do, which I feel like I'm not even going to get into Proverbs 31, because I'm not into Proverbs 31 women. Everybody just puts her like, I know I used to feel like Proverbs 31, like that's who I aspire to be. And then I'm like, yo, this is that type of like, I guess that archetype is not somebody that I want to fulfill at all. I just want to be myself and get into what I want to do. In one way, I feel like the Proverbs 31 woman is kind of very like stereotypical women roles, in a sense. It's like she sews, she cooks, she does everything. And it's just like, what is her husband doing, if anything? It's just like she's the one who's taking care of everything. Her husband's proud of her. Anyway, whatever. Let's just say, I want to live in a reality where I can do what I want. That's what I really want. And I feel like I have to have these conversations about, like, it's research. It's research, it's stories, right? That's what we're into. We're into stories and the way that they connect. And we're into the layers that are in stories. That's in one way how we could look at what academia is. And we're looking at different people's stories and different people's analyses of these different stories, and people making estimations and guesses and conclusion about different things. And it's like, oh, that's so interesting, the way that all of these people are thinking about things. And so really, to me, it's like, I'm interested in thought, right? That's what academia is to me in a way. And then I'm interested in art, and I'm interested in how these different media come together, and how it's like you have an emotional response to different things, and it's a sensory experience with things. And I want all of that. I want all of it. And I'm going to figure that out. Mark my words today, October 3rd, 2021. I don't know whenever this is going to be close. Mark my words. I'm going to find a way to blend it all, because I want the whole life that I'm meant to have. And I think it's all of those things.
I feel like if there's, you better take the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say, if there's anyone on this planet who I'm like, they could do it, it's Amber.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I thank you.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's funny, Amber, because I've always kind of another thing I was thinking about was one of the dreams I've always had, or I actually had it and I was going towards that, and then I shifted towards like more research and academia and stuff, was I wanted to be a radio host. So I wanted to be like a Charlemagne type figure where, you know, like I'm on the radio, I'm talking about culture, I'm talking about music, and then allow that to branch into, and I love how Charlemagne was, and whether a person likes Charlemagne or not, I like how he was able to take that and then leverage that into books, and then leverage that into TV, leverage it into podcasts, leverage it into all these different other spaces that and then he's still very learned, you know what I'm saying? He's a very well-read individual. And so that's one thing that I would have liked to do. And now thinking about you, Amber, I see you as being more of that multimedia. Like I could see you doing a podcast and having a TV and being an influencer and having fashion, and maybe like being like almost like this Jane of all trades of just having your hands in, and you just kind of impacting it, being to a point where you're so good at that one thing that they know you for, and then just kind of start putting your hands in all this stuff, and then kind of like more so guiding it as opposed to like being hands-on with everything, because you can't do that, but you can like have the money and the resources and the influence to like put this person here and then guide it, put that person here and then guide it, put that person here and then guide it, and kind of do it like that.
You're doing something for me. You're doing something for me. I needed to hear you say that, because I think what I've gone back and forth on this thing of like, in one way wanting to like find one thing and try to focus on that. But anytime I try to do that, it's not satisfying. It's not even a satisfying mental exercise. It's like, okay, I'm tired of being the Jane of all trades, try to pick one and just try to go in that. And yet what you also said was like, how can I maybe pick one and then kind of pivot from that and go in different directions? I still think like, however, whatever I end up doing or creating, I need to start with the multi-plan. Like it has to start like that. Otherwise, I don't think I can be even mentally satisfied enough to go into that. So that's interesting. And this brings me to a question, and maybe we can wrap up on this question. I was talking about this yesterday with my boyfriend after we had a very random encounter with, this is a long story short, but we were driving around waiting to get our takeout from Flying Biscuit, and we came upon a yard sale, and the stuff was kind of interesting. So I was like, let's go up in there. And the woman who was out there, she had this real cool vibe, and she was like, yeah, I'm a costume designer, and you know, I'm really well known. And then we're like, and so then my boyfriend who was there, he asked what her name was, and so then we left. We got a few left. We looked her up. She was not just any costume designer. She was the wardrobe stylist and costume designer for Sex and the City. And and we all know what Sex and the City did for clothing and
fashion.
Right.
Wow.
In fashion, period.
Carrie Bradshaw was big. Like everybody wanted Carrie Bradshaw clothes.
Huge. Okay. So it's like,
wait, was she at the yard sale or was she hosting?
It was her yard
wow.
sale. She's selling that house. She's selling her Atlanta house, and she's having a yard sale. And it's just like, this is interesting. And so then that triggered for us a whole conversation about like, what does success look like? Because it's like, because it's the idea, we were talking about the idea of being well-known, because it's like, she said that I'm a well-known person, and yet neither of us had ever heard of her. Had we both, well, had I at least been definitely influenced by her. I used to definitely watch Sex and the City, and in the fashion world, I feel like it's been affected. And so we started thinking like, being well known as a goal. Like sometimes that's an indicator for some people of success. And so we started thinking, well, to be well known, is that to be successful? So then what does it mean to be successful? Like, what do you think success is? I'll share what my definition is, or what I began to define. I would love to hear what you all think success is, especially in light of all of what could be considered successes that you had, Jacquie, in the past month. And then John, even thinking about your successes and how you just opened up technically like the physical manifestation of one of your major successes just now on camera 2 years later. So it makes me think about how you define and what you think success is too. And so I'll start with what I think, and then I'd love to hear what you all think. So out of that conversation from yesterday, I realized that success for me is to be able to pay my bills and not blink. I don't want to have to even feel it. I don't want to have to feel my bills, because I know one stressor for me is just thinking about bills and all of that. Success for me is being able to be like, oh, okay. And I'm good. I'm not like, rent is due, or, oh, this is due, whatever. That's one marker of success for me. Another marker is that I'm more happy than I'm not happy. So, and I'm not saying like 51-49. I want to be like at least 70-30, or like, I don't even want to say 65-35, but even more higher than that. Like, I want to feel happy more than I don't feel happy. That's important for me. Another one part of success for me is to have peace. I want to be able to have peace in my decisions. And what I mean by that is, what I'm beginning to accept more and more is that no matter what we do in life, there are negotiations that we make, right? It's like some stuff I can live with, some, right? And I want more of, so there's this give and take that we have to do to be successful in this life, especially to be people who are remotely conscious and living in a capitalistic regime, right? It's like you participate in capitalism, which means you participate in oppression and enslavement of other people. Even without you directly doing it, we participate in it, you know, even by using these devices. And so there's this give and take that's there in life that is going to be there since we're here in this regime. So there's that give and take. And I just want to make sure that I have peace where there's not so much take, where I'm not negotiating my life around more takes than I am doing gives. So if that's like, because we live under this system and we have to deal with all these things, I don't want that to be 51-49 either. I would prefer if it's like 60-40 or 70-30 or something, where I don't feel like I'm having to negotiate so much of myself, yet I accept the fact that there's that give and take. So that's another piece of it. It's like, I want to be able to have peace in the kind of balance between that give and take in the world. And my last thing was that I want to always, an indicator of success for me is to be able to recognize the humanity in any moment. And that meaning that, like, there could be a situation happening, and yet I have the consciousness and I have the connection to the spirit to see it beyond what it might be. So that might be if I'm at a restaurant and, you know, I'm doing one of my busy days. I have this meeting, I have that meeting, I have this meeting, and the waiter or waitress, they, flip flop or something, they mess up or something. And I'm not going to come down their throats, because I'm a human being and I see the human in any moment, or like I'm walking around somewhere and something happens and it's like, I can see beyond that moment because I'm connected to spirit, or, it's that kind of thing. I feel like that, to me, if I can stay in line, if I can spiritual alignment, that to me is success. So yeah, those are kind of my definitions of success. And I'm sure I could probably unpack that some more, and I need to write it down so I can really go for that, so I can move towards that, because I want whatever I do to be able to have all of those pieces, or I'm able to have peace with all of those things, So yeah, what about y'all?
That is a good question. And I think you're challenging. First of all, the first thing that I thought about is, y'all remember The Devil Wears Prada, and how I don't even remember her name, the editor, the devil, read her assistant for filth, where she was talking about cerulean, when she was like, we picked this thing to go on the cover, like we picked this belt, and then all of a sudden cerulean becomes like color, like the most popular color, and it trickles down to these bargain basements where you get that ugly sweater that you're wearing. But all of that comes because we decided what belt to put on this person who goes on the cover. And it just made me think about, like, that's like one way to define. You were talking about like this famous, well-known fashion designer, costume designer, and it made me think about like how success is defined just because these group of people sat in a room and picked a belt, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone's fashion is influenced by that. So all that to say, like, it started me down the train of like thinking, like, is success like influence? Like, is that like a success that I would be happy with? But just like listening to you, I don't even think that I have articulated what success looks like for me. And maybe that's why like finishing a PhD feels anticlimactic, because it probably doesn't align with like my core definition of success. Like I think larger society looks at finishing a PhD as like this huge success. And I'm happy I did it. And I'm like grateful, and I'm doing stuff with it that I wanted to do. Like I set this goal, I completed this goal, and now I'm like living out what I set out to do. But it still doesn't like negate the fact that I feel like it was like anticlimactic. Like I can think of other moments throughout my life where I've been like, oh yeah, this is great. And it wasn't anything like remotely close to that. It might've just been me hanging out with my family. Like we had like a random potluck or something, and we're like, oh yeah, let's just get together, like have this moment. So I think like all of that to say is like, I think I need to articulate like my internal feelings of what success is. And what I really like about how you defined yours, Amber, is that there are so many things that are like those intangible type feelings, like peace, like those sorts of things are not like the typical markers of success. Like the typical markers of success are like achieving this goal by 35, or like achieving this financial goal, or having this much money in the bank, or having this type of job by 35 or 40, or having, you know, these very tangible things that you can see. And I like the fact that your definition of success is incredibly subjective, because one person's piece might not be another person's piece. So yeah, so that's what I'm feeling right now.
I like that. And it's interesting because I'm gonna start with extending something that Jacquie said, and then pull from two of yours, Amber. I feel you about that anticlimactic feeling when you that you get. I probably had a more instant gratification feeling when I got the book deal. When I got that book deal with Temple University Press, immediately I felt it, and it was like, you know what I'm saying? But the PhD, even the job, I don't know why I didn't have that, and I think it was because it was attached to like these other things, right? Because, and I was just listening to a sermon by Sarah Jakes Roberts yesterday, and I could send it to y'all. It was so good. Somebody sent it to me. And one of the things it talked, I think it was called Adapting with Purpose or something like that. And she was talking about how a lot of times in society we conform when we're called to adapt. And you can adapt to a different situation and still be yourself, and still be who God made you to be, and still be who God called you to be. It was such a beautiful sermon. Like I was almost in tears because I was listening to it while I was in the gym, and I was listening to it when I got back in the car. And I sent it to some of my other homies, and I was like, yo, y'all need to listen to this sermon. It was really good. But one of the things she said was, a lot of times success is immediately connected to additional feelings of failure and anxiety, because when you succeed at something, now you have to walk in it. Now you have to prove that you could do it. And sometimes we get these moments of of imposter syndrome. Like, oh, okay, I got this PhD, but deep down, like I really just kind of fumbled my way through this thing. Like I don't even know why they gave it to me. I don't even really. Yeah, I was gonna say, Amber, like I'm pretty sure you felt that way going to Harvard. This is arguably what a lot of people consider the greatest school in the world. And if it was me walking in, I'd be like, I'm not doing this because they're gonna find out that for real. I'm a regular.
That's what I felt like, yeah.
Like, like, are you crazy? So it's like a lot of times we go through these imposter syndromes. And I think a large part of that goes to going to what Amber said, is the reason why we sometimes feel this way is because we haven't yet settled in and tapped into our true meanings of success. And it's not just the job you get, or the money you have, or the car you drive, or what people call you, or your title, because a lot of time that just add more strings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's really these much deeper things. So two of those things Amber said I love. One of them was that peace, like just being in a consistent state of peace, a consistent state of contentment. I think for me is like one of the biggest markers for success from me. Another one is you said
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, you said peace, and then you said happiness. And so just you said, and I love how you kept going up, because you was like, you don't even want 50-50. And then you said like 65, and then you said 70. And I'm thinking in my mind, keep going. keep going.
Actually, though,
yeah.
95, 100, like we want, and I think sometimes we pull back because we're like, well, that's not reality, because we, we're gonna be sad. Sometimes it's like, no, God want us to have the ultimate. I want 100% happiness all the time. I want that. Like, I know
that shows me.
You know what I'm saying? I know things gonna happen in our lives. I know, you know what I'm saying? It's, it's just gonna be messed up sometimes, but I want that consistent state of peace and happiness and laughter and joy. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the same thing for me as well. Another thing I was thinking about, it might sound a little soft, but like I was thinking to myself, like, what people think, like how much do I weigh in that? Like, how much does that mean to me? And the older I get, the less a little bit what people think really means to me. Except for one person, and that's my daughter. Like, I even though she only 4, like I often ask her, like, are you happy? Are you good? And she's 4, so she's always happy. So,
man,
you know what I'm saying? She's just excited about everything. And so, but I think for me, a big marker of success would be the type of woman that she turns out to be. Like if she's going to be somebody who's not necessarily what she achieves, if she gets a degree or how much money she makes, but like just like the type of woman she is, you know what I'm saying? And ultimately, when she does get older and, and becomes more conscious about certain things, like if she could look at me and say, Daddy, you are a great father. Daddy, you did a good job. Daddy, I love you. Daddy, you are amazing. If she says that to me at 13 and 17 and 19 and 25, I'll be like, I'm good. Put me in the ground, bro. Like, a nigga is straight, bro. Like, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, if my daughter could tell me that, bro, like, I think that's one of the biggest areas of anxiety that I have in my life, for real, is like, how am I gonna show up for this little girl? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but I really be thinking about that shit, bro. Like, how am I gonna show up for her? Like, how am I gonna make sure, like, every time, you know what I'm saying? So if she get 13, 15, 25, 30, and she like, nah, Daddy, you good. Like, you did your thing. And I'm, you know what I'm saying? I'm happy. I'll be like, man, nigga, I'm cool, guy. You can take me there. I'm cool now, bro. So that's a big marker.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yo, I like I miss her. See this? I be wanting to do one every week, dog. You see why I be wanting to do it? Eating these, and Amber be coming up with the best questions, man. Amber,
for real.
That's what I'm saying. You could be like a Oprah or some shit.
That's what I think. I kind of think that's what I would want to do. Like, because I'm a person who asks questions.
Yeah.
And I love talking to people and understanding what your thoughts are about things. Like, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in people's thinking and their thoughts and their feelings and us all being interconnected, because we're all like, I just think it's so interesting that it took this Street Academy podcast episode for you to open up and that's wild. And that's on the heels of our other co-host just conferring hers.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. That's a synchronicity. It's like That's interesting, because I don't think you would have written it that way. And I find moments like that where it's just like, if we had written the story, would that have happened? And I don't think you would have done that. I don't think you would have said, hey, you're gonna have this whole degree and you're not gonna open it until 2 years later in the middle of a podcast. The other co-host actually confers her doctorate degree.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, you couldn't have written a better you couldn't have written a better treatment. Yeah, you're right. And I would have never opened this thing. It's just been sitting there for 3 years. Like,
that's
it's 3 years? It's 3 years. Okay.
Wild.
I thought you were going to say 2. I thought it was 3 years later. And that also says something about the passage of time. How time passes regardless. And when you, man, I don't know, something about that is just so metaphorical or symbolic to me. Like having the degree in that tube, right? Like what that's supposed to represent. And it's been in there for 3 years. But it doesn't mean that it's not real, that it hasn't already happened. Not that it has, it's not that it's not, like you haven't experienced, I guess, the effects of that degree. Because it's like, you've been teaching, you've been a professor, you've been doing all these things with that title, but not necessarily the physical of it. And I don't know, there's something about it. I don't have my finger on it yet, but
I did feel something when I looked. I was like, wow, I felt something actually, and maybe I saw
it.
I did.
Like we saw it in your face.
I was like,
you want to open up my degree? Hold on.
Wait, you haven't opened up yours either?
No. I've opened it.
I was like, all right, this is too much.
Maybe if I got one from Harvard, I might open one up from Harvard.
Oh, for sure.
I haven't looked at it in a while. This is my degree.
That's big.
I looked at this in a long time.
That's interesting. Like the whole layout is different. Harvard will be the one to be like,
y'all already Harvard.
Right.
Gotta be.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
I haven't looked at it in a while.
You still got it in the plastic.
For real.
You ain't even got it in a frame or nothing.
Yeah, it's not in a frame. This was definitely one of those. This was a moment where I felt like, yo, I accomplished this because of like how it all happened. Like it was a moment. And
you came from the couch. Remember from the couch to Cambridge? Like it was from the bottom when you got that.
Yeah,
it was a whole moment.
I did a whole campaign, and a part of me just wonders if I should even like how I want to kind of close up that story, because I still work at Harvard, so my connection is still very much there, and I feel like for some of my other friends who went there, and at the same time, I didn't make a lot of friends while I was there, to be honest. Not at Harvard. I made that's a whole other story, which I think is interesting. And when I think back of myself in retrospect, like who was I as a student there? Like I more so made friends at church because that was like who my community was. And that's how I more so looked at my identity back then. But like I at least can say for like one of my other friends or two of my other friends who I actually keep in contact with, and barely shout out Trishika and Raquel, but
what up Trishika, what up Rochelle? I'll let you boy.
Raquel, so
Raquel.
I don't know if they feel like they have as much of a connection. It's kind of like it was like a blur, like it was a year and then it kind of happened. But like I actually stayed in Boston and was like working there, and so I feel like this kind of different connection to that community, and then I'm still working there even post-pandemic or like in the pandemic. And yet there's probably around the early next year, I'm going to go ahead, or the plan is to transition that job. And so then it will be like Harvard will be something from the past, even though, you still maintain connection. And so I feel like there's a closing to that chapter soon. And I think that's going to be very interesting in terms of what I think about success and like the cycle of success, because it's like when it comes to even your doctorates, which I'm not trying to prolong this conversation, but it's like when can you, it's not about necessarily stop celebrating a success, but when is it kind of over? You know how some people are trying to ride on one thing for too long? so it's just like, when is it like you can stop being like, I'm this, or like not that attitude, but like, like, yeah, I'm a doctor. And then it just becomes like, is that one of those things where people always celebrate it? Or like, when somebody becomes a mother for the first time, or a father for the first time, or like, they do something for the first time. It's like these firsts and all of that, or like they break these records. Like, what are the cycles of this? But you get what I mean?
That's really good question.
That is a good question.
Like commercial break. I've been having these things. I bought this really big plant in my room. It's really nice looking. And it
you got like the little plant gnats.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah.
It's like Palm Tree, Florida, John.
I know. I love my plant, but now it's got these gnats coming up in my room. So that's why I keep doing like that. That is a great. I think that could definitely start off another conversation of like, when do you say, like, is it gonna be like 5 years from now and we still like PhD, Harvard grad? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is it like, that's a good question. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how like how long does who's the fastest man in the world? Usain Bolt. Like, how long does he be that until somebody beats his record? You know what I'm saying? Is it like, you know what I'm saying?
And it's like the thing when people say nominated, like when you think about celebrities, it's like they're Grammy nominated, Oscar nominated, or like they won this. And for the rest of their career, it's like, I'm Oscar winner, so-and-so. Like, you're always going to have that because of that particular accomplishment. And maybe that's the same way the title doctor works. Right. It's like, you're going to always have that because that precedes your name. And so it's like Academy Award winning actress, so-and-so and so-and-so. Like, that's a thing. And yet when it also comes to like musicians, it's like, they're this Grammy winner, or they're this Billboard topping, or, they kind of, even when you think about verses, they go back and forth with these numbers. But how people will say like, it's like your next album is your best album. Or like, I think Denzel Washington said it, like, my next movie is my best movie. It's like, he's not just kind of thinking about like, oh, what I did in Training Day or what I did in X, but it's like that next thing. But I feel like that also creates kind of a pressure where you always have to feel like you got to like be better than yourself at some point. And that doesn't feel good.
It doesn't. And I'm not like anti-growth, anti-evolution, but at the same time, like, I think that just given the structure of our society, particularly as it's influenced by capitalism, which is like this always like seeking for more, like this always like encompassing more and more and more, that I think that taking time to celebrate however long that takes, like if that's a lifetime celebration, that's like fine, especially as Black people, especially like as women, where we don't have like the room and latitude to celebrate. Like, I think about, just like morbidity rates in Black communities being what they are. And part of that is because the idea of celebration, the idea of joy is something that's not a given. Like, it's something that we're constantly having to fight for and like steal and co-opt. So I'm like, if somebody wants to celebrate the same thing 50-11 times, then 50-11 times it is. Yeah. Live your life. And that, I mean, you're not bothering anybody. I mean, you might be annoying somebody, but they'll be fine, I'm sure.
But that's what anniversaries are for. Like, you have Mother's Day and Father's Day, and every August of that year, you're gonna think about this is the day that I got. You know what I'm saying? My people. This is the day that I graduated. The day you got married. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna think about those. Even musicians come out with albums and they be like, yo, this, Outcast, Aquemini, whatever, like,
they just did that.
Drop the blueprint on it, and they still, you celebrate those things because, that's a part of your growth, that's a part of your story.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like even though I said that like the actual defense and stuff was anticlimactic, every time I have to fill out some new paperwork or whatever, like online, whatever, and it has like that drop down for prefix. And I'm like, oh yeah, like my prefix is now doctor. Yeah, like it has like that little celebratory moment in it because I know at some point I'll get like something in the mail that's like Dr. Jacquie Forbes, and I'll be like, oh, yes, correct. Like, so it's like these little mini celebrations that happen. And honestly, like those moments, those moments of just like filling out random paperwork have felt more celebratory than the actual moment of that moment did feel like, all right, well, I'm about to take this nap and I'll catch y'all later.
And that's something I actually tell either like my students or I'll tell some of my mentees, people who are coming up who are like working on their dissertations. I always tell them when they say, John, yo, like I'm to a point where I just don't want to do this no more. I'm at this phase, I'm giving up. And I always tell them this story. I think I've said this on here before as well, but I'll say it again. I always think about what Muhammad Ali said when he was like, I hated every moment of training, but I thought about it and I said I could either train now and live the rest of my life as a champion. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be. I tell my mentees and stuff that I say you could go through this 2 years where it's gonna suck, where you got to do this research, where you got to go under a rock, and guess what? From that moment that you done until the day that you die, all the way up until your tombstone, guess what they got to put on that mug? They got to put doctor before they put your name. So for the rest of your life, for the rest of eternity, for your kids' life and your kids' lives, like you change your life and the lives of future generations just off of that small time of sacrifice. So just think that that's a small price that you got to pay for making that much of a change. You know what I'm saying? So struggle now, like Ali say, struggle in the gym, struggle in running those miles, and live the rest of your life as a doctor. You know what I'm saying?
There it is.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Oh, I feel like I should, since we showing degrees, I'll show y'all my Canva degree.
Let's
This is what I got on my email.
Let's go. Defense was dope too. Wow. I know I told you this already, but I'll say it on the episode. I loved your defense.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you. It was beautiful because, the one part of the pandemic is that, people are on Zoom. And I know that all those people were not going to Wisconsin. Yeah. I wasn't even trying to go to Wisconsin to do my defense. So it was just nice that everybody could just from wherever they were.
Yeah, that was dope. How we feeling, y'all? Feeling good, feeling great?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Shout out to the lady who was doing a yard sale. I forget her name at this exact moment, so that's not really helpful. But because I'm grateful that she just we were just talking and she was just open to talking, and it ended up us having this conversation in a way. So that's cool.
Absolutely. Feeling good. All hearts and minds clear?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm clear. I think I'm like on the edge of something.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I feel like this whole moment was interesting.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me. And I feel like I just need to let it sit in there, and then it'll I think I'm marinating. So I don't know if I'm clear marinating. Or it's like, like if it's water, it's different from having still water and having water with a ripple in it. So I feel like the water has the ripple. Like that's where I am right now.
I like it. I love it. I love it. Well, yo, if you still have some rippled effects from this episode and you want to contact us, holler at us at Street Academy Podcast on IG, at Jacquie on all the things. At Amber Camilla on all the things, at J. Paul Grant on all the things. Go to our YouTube. I've heard people actually tell me, they say, people don't even know we have a YouTube. So they're like, yo, what are episodes? And I'm like, they on YouTube. And they like, no, we only go to whatever. And I'm like, so go to YouTube, but actually watch the full episodes. So check it. Please subscribe to our YouTube page, Street Academy Podcast. Check us out. If you're coming across us on other podcast stations and networks and things like that, if you want to actually see it live, not see it live, but see us and see the conversations and everything. But thank y'all so much for hollering at us. Thank y'all so much for being here. If y'all got any ideas or anything you want to say, any feedback, leave comments on our IG page, leave comments on our YouTube page. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond because I don't always check it, but I will respond though when I see it. So yes, with that being said, it's been another episode, y'all. Street Academy Podcast, where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets. And we are out. Peace, peace.
That you know got their feet apart. The neck of the haters, the game and the devil like came in.